Next, could the East Midlands black community have a big say in the election? The latest figures show there are more than 22,000 voters in Nottingham who regard themselves as black British, African or Caribbean. In Leicester, it's more than 20,000, and in Derby, the figure is just over 7,300. But many in our black communities fear people are disengaged from politics. Des Coleman has been to meet the campaigners trying to change all that.
And today on Insight Radio, we will be talking about the importance of the African vote.
Making sure the message is heard. Insight Radio operates from a basement underneath a block of shops in Nottingham. It's aimed at the East Midlands black African community. In a region with so many marginal seats, the feeling here is that the black vote could have a real impact.
I think it's very important and can play a greatly significant role in deciding the next election, because if we particularly look at seats, and there's lots of marginal seats within the East Midlands, and also the statistics have shown that there are many Africans who live in various marginal constituencies. Now, if we were able to actually mobilise the African or the black vote together, Africans could play a more than significant role in shaping the next government.
But you don't have to go far to find people who aren't engaged. Above the radio station is a hairdresser's. Have you ever voted?
No.
Why?
Sometimes when you vote, I think your voice is not even heard. When you say something, when something is going wrong, your voice is not heard, so there's no point voting.
No shortage of political commitment here. These students at Nottingham Trent University are passionately engaged.
I don't feel disengaged with politics at all. It motivates me even more, the fact that they're trying to push me out of it. It makes me have more desire to try and grab it and say, okay, I'm going to find out everything I can about this. I'm going to make myself know the ins and outs, so that I will not be defeated by the system.
Black people in general feel disassociated with politics because we look into the political arena and we hardly see any black people. We see maybe Chuku Umana, David Lammy, but who else do we really see that can represent us as a whole?
Cecile Wright is an academic and a Labour Party member who's part of the party's Black African Network, aimed at getting more black people selected as candidates for Parliament.
The progress here is not as fast as we would like it to be. For example, within the East Midlands, we do not have a single black MP. And for those candidates that have been selected for the 106 targeted Labour seats, only one of those 106 is in fact black.
For many in the black community now, the task is to get more people engaged in politics.
We need to make sure that as communities we're all registered to vote, because the moment we're registered to vote, we've got that voting potential. And therefore, even if Parliament is predominantly white middle-class males, with our voting potential, they have to take notice of us.
There's also a feeling that politicians could help too. Campaigners say that Labour's all-women shortlists have increased their representation in Parliament, and it may be time to copy that idea.
In order to address and correct the situation where we do not have a fair representation of black applicants being selected for the Labour Party, for Parliament, perhaps we need to consider going down the route of all black shortlists.
It's a fight on two fronts, encouraging more black people to be involved in politics and encouraging politicians to do more to help, with the aim of making sure everyone's voice is heard.
Well, we're joined by two of the students that we saw in Des's report there, Jamila and Giles. So two important points there, feeling that the black community isn't engaging with politics and that more should really be done to encourage them. So let's deal with that disenchantment first, Giles. Is that really the case? If so, what's causing it?
Yeah, I do believe that's the case. I currently study in Nottingham, but I'm originally from North London, around Enfield to Tottenham, and when we think of politics, we think of corruption and injustices, and then the black community feel that they can't really put their trust into politicians anymore. So what's the point of them getting involved with politics if they don't feel like the people they're putting their trust in can be trusted in the first place?
Jamila, what do you think?
I have to agree with the sentiment that Giles is saying there, because ultimately people feel like they can't trust the politicians, and also people recognise what they are familiar with, and when they look at the politicians, there's not that many familiar faces. There's not,
So where's this mistrust coming from? Why don't you trust people like Jason and John?
With all due respect, I think sometimes you don't make it that easy for yourselves with your policies, because they don't necessarily kind kind of take into account people like me and Giles, or, you know, students in general, or young people in general, or working class people. It's not so, you know, we're not accountable. We feel like we're not accounted for in your policy sometimes. And I think a really important point to make is, in the recession, you know, pensioners were really well protected by, you know,
and you
the
felt
politicians.
That you weren't as students.
Yes, but the thing is, pensioners vote. Students need to get out there and vote. Black people need to get out there and vote. And then we're both working together and saying we can both help each other.
What are you going to do, Jason, to try and build up this trust, which clearly is missing?
Well, I think this is a trust issue across all of politics. I mean, when you look at Parliament and you don't see enough women, enough black people, enough gay people, enough people of different faith, and I think politicians of all colours are guilty of misplacing trust.
Why
with
don't the Lib
people.
Dems have any black or minority ethnic MPs?
Well, we would love to, and in certain places where you've got very good candidates from all different walks of life, and we're trying to win them.
I know you've got 17 candidates standing in the coming election, BME candidates standing in the coming election.
Yes, so far we're quite late in our selection process actually. So we've a number of people, but we're trying to get best candidates through that from an enormously diverse range of backgrounds, so that our parliamentary team is representative more of people, so that you can feel like you engage more.
How worrying is this, John?
I think these are very important points. I mean, the Liberals do have a woeful record in selecting black and minority ethnic candidates. Of course, the Labour Party have had the best record, but it's not good enough. I think there's about 16 Labour Party MPs from black and minority ethnic backgrounds. Indeed, here in the East Midlands, Keith Faz, from an Asian background, was elected in Leicester over 25 years ago. That was the same time when we got Diane Abbott and Bernie Grant elected in North London. And I'm a member of the Labour Party National Executive Committee in Edmonton, just down the road from where you're from. We've put together a shortlist which is just black and minority ethnic. So the next MP for Edmonton, if Edmonton continues to vote Labour, will be from a black or minority ethnic background.
Is that the way forward, these lists?
I think it's great, not to attack you, but to attack the point. It's just that it's great that we can talk about having these shortlists coming up, and say, yeah, we don't have enough black people, we don't have enough females, but we really need to get them into more power about it. It's great that we can talk about it, but we want to see action about it. That's what's going to turn people to think, wow, things are actually changing, and get them more involved in the political process.
But I think that's the right point, actually. It's not, I don't like shortlists generally, but I think what you've got to do is what you said, start everybody being included in politics at your age, at a younger age. We've got the youngest county councillor in Nottinghamshire is the youngest county councillor in the country, because he feels like he should engage,
Jason,
and we should be able to open that to all sorts.
But Jason, I mean, at the moment, black and minority ethnic shortlists are illegal under the law. I think it's something that should be looked at. But the Labour Party found that when we didn't have all women shortlists, not enough women were getting elected to Parliament, and I'm afraid if you want to increase representation, you have to do something radical.
Well, you heard what Cecile Wright in our report was saying. She's a Labour Party member, as you know. Things just aren't moving forward fast enough.
No, they're not moving forward fast enough. She's actually wrong in her statistics, by the way. There was actually a few more black candidates on that list of 106, and we've got more candidates from Asian backgrounds and other ethnic backgrounds. But we've got to do more. Parliament has got to look like the country. And that also, by the way, includes working class candidates. Too many people are going into politics from better off backgrounds.
I think it's very easy to say that, and I do genuinely believe that you also mean that. However, what are we actually going to do to change this? If policies started being implemented that actually made differences, we would see differences. But the fact that policies aren't being implemented to change the way our government looks, that's why there's no changes. And if you're in that position, why would you want it to change?
But you hit the nail on the head as well when you said you've got to get involved.
Yeah.
That means you've got to make sure you're on the electoral register,
yeah,
because loads of young people are falling off the electoral register because of the new system.
Well, there's a huge push for that at the moment,
particularly students are falling off as well. And you also said about how government's put in place measures for pensioners and so on. Well, we've had, the tuition fees trebled by the Liberal Democrats, the EMA taken away. If young people get involved and make their voice heard,
I wanted to just ask you both, because you're
much.
Obviously both very engaged in politics. You're both politics students for a start off. What about your friends, your mates? Are they interested in politics, and what do they say when you say that you're interested in it?
They are interested in politics, but do they actually get involved? No, because they don't feel they don't feel they can make a difference. But I think if we're going from representation of like gender, ethnicity, then we also need to go about age, because there's 16-year-olds out there who are willing to vote. They are clued up about politics and want to get involved. And the fact that they're not able to vote at the moment, I think is a complete travesty.
Giles, Jamila, thanks very much for coming into the studio.